spinning rapidly around. Looks like we're pointed straight at the core below us. Many thoughts come through my mind at that moment, not the least of which include fear of an untimely and fiery death. What am I doing here? Is learning to fly worth this? Mostly, I just want the spinning to stop. That was over 40 years ago at the University of Illinois Institute of Aviation. It was antiquated even then, with its leftover World War II Quonset huts, the corrugated metal arched buildings that housed classrooms and served as a hangar for the airplanes. I found myself inside of one that had been divided into about 20 cubicles, sitting across from my new flight instructor, Mike Mahoney. He told me he didn't think I should be there. At first I thought he meant I found the wrong cubicle, but no, he elaborated. I don't think women should be flying planes. I'd already had a lot of pushback on my career choice. I remember coming home fresh from career day, super excited, running up the stairs and into the kitchen. Mom, Dad, I'm gonna be an airline pilot. The look of horror on my mother's face. People die in airplanes, she said. People die in bathtubs too. My snarky teenage daughter replied, which went over exactly how you would expect I would have. But I guess to my Depression-era parents, pilot seemed like a better choice than my initial one of novelist. The starving artist's daughter just wasn't going over very well. I think they envisioned me in some freezing garret with those fingerless Dickinsonian gloves typing away on a manual typewriter. To this day, I really don't know if they came around to the idea of pilot because they liked it or because they were afraid of what else I might choose. My high school guidance counselor was not very encouraging either. I sat across from him in his cluttered, cramped office, and he basically told me he thought I was crazy. There was an oil shortage on. The airlines were furloughing. They weren't hiring pilots. You'll never get a job. You know, on the off chance that you get a job, I'm not this uncoordinated. On the off chance that you get a job, you're never gonna get a husband. Who's gonna wanna marry you if you're gone all the time? Just say, on the really off chance that you snag the job and the husband, you'll never be able to have a family. No one's gonna you shouldn't be able to raise children with a lifestyle like that. So sitting inside that cubicle across from Mike Mahoney telling me I shouldn't be there played right into all my insecurities. What was the girl who was terrified of roller coasters, who even hated the tame spinning teacups? What was I doing learning to fly planes? The Institute kept its fleet of about 20 Beechcraft Sports parked in neat rows on a large ramp outside the largest of the hangars. They were all painted white on top and a truly hideous shade of orange on the bottom. One bright and sunny spring day, I went out to pre-flight the plane I was going to fly that day, and the fuel tanks were half full, which was very strange. Fuelers usually always top them right off. I walked back to the cubicle to report this to Mike Mahoney. We're doing spins today, he said. The tanks had to be half empty for weight and balance to keep the center of gravity within limits so that we wouldn't be able to recover from the stall and spin, and then we'd be able to not put too much stress on the airframe. I already had a lot of trepidation about doing spins. This factoid did not help. But back then, the U of I required that we observe a spin in order to get our private pilot's license. It was a requirement dropped by the FAA, but like the old Quonset huts, the Institute of Aviation kept it around, I guess, for nostalgia's sake. Maybe they wouldn't be so bad. I only had to see just the one. We climbed to 6,500 feet, about twice as high as we usually flew for our practice maneuvers. We needed the extra altitude to recover from the spin. Mahoney pulled the throttle back and then the yoke, bringing the plane into an aerodynamic stall. It started to buffet. We'd done stalls before. They didn't scare me. But then he jammed in that right rudder, the hard dive that did. We're spinning straight down towards the ground. Oh my God, I hated this. I was holding on so tightly, I actually snapped the cover off of my seat cover cushion. I crushed my eyes closed. I peeked as Mike started recovering from the stall and the spin. He put in the opposite rudder. As he brought the throttle in and leveled the wings, he added power and brought the nose up. afterwards, my palms sweating, my heart racing, he asked me if I had any questions. And I said, I might have if I had had my eyes open. It was a joke, not joke, that Mike Mahoney didn't find especially funny. Fast forward 3 years later, and now I'm learning how to be a flight instructor myself. For this certification, I would have to not only observe spins, but I'd have to perform them. One hot summer day, I walked back from the ramp and into my instructor's cubicle after my pre-flight pale and sweaty, and not because of the weather. The tanks were half full. He smiled. Steve was nice. He knew I feared spins. He didn't want to tell me ahead of time. Again, out in the practice area, the agonizingly slow climb, I observed Steve perform one spin to the left and one to the right. Now it was my turn. Hating every moment I did them, with my instructor by my side to fix anything should I screw it up, which fortunately wasn't necessary. Later that same summer, I was scheduled to perform a solo flight, just go out to the practice area by myself and perform some maneuvers. I went out to pre-flight, the dreaded half tanks. It was not only an institute rule, it was an FAA rule that I had to perform spins solo. I walked back into the instructor's cubicle. Steve looked at the expression on my face, just one spin to the left and one spin to the right, and probably some 1980s version of, you got this. Out in the practice area, I was climbing to 6,500 feet. Back then, there was no Flight Radar 24 app, there was no GPS, there was no cockpit voice recorder, black box, not even a drone with a camera. No one would know if I just flew straight and level for 20 minutes and told everyone I had done spins. But all those voices came back into my head. I don't think you should be here. People die in airplanes. You'll never get the job, the husband, be able to have kids. But the voice that mattered the most, the one I knew I would hear forever, was the voice in my head, my voice. Did I believe in myself? Did I believe that I belonged there? I idled the throttle and pulled back the yoke, bringing it into the aerodynamic stall, and kicked in full left rudder, and the airplane spun around twice, the minimum. I did it 2 times, the minimum. Kicked in the opposite rudder, brought the nose back up, added power. I had done it. I made it. I was okay. The plane was okay. I had done it all by myself. I eventually became the flight instructor that other flight instructors would pawn off their spin students to. It was a fact that I didn't know at the time, which I really would have appreciated, that not everybody loves spins. A lot of people have the trepidation towards them that I had. But that afternoon, I didn't know I would be everybody's go-to spin flight instructor. I did my next spin to the right. One solo, 2-turn spin to the left. One solo, 2-turn spin to the right. And I did them both with my eyes wide open.
Yeah.